The rain had been falling for days, not the gentle patter that lulled one to sleep, but a relentless downpour that hammered against the windows and drowned out all other sounds. Sarah lay awake in her bed, listening to the cascade of water and the distant rumble of thunder. Sleep was elusive, her mind restless amidst the dark rain sounds that enveloped her small cottage on the edge of town. She glanced at the clock, 3:00 a.m. With a sigh, she wrapped a blanket around her shoulders and made her way to the kitchen. The house felt colder than usual, the air thick with an unplaceable unease. As she filled the kettle, a sudden flash of lightning illuminated the room, revealing a figure standing in the garden. Her breath caught in her throat. She blinked and the figure was gone. "Just my imagination," she whispered, trying to steady her racing heart. The next morning, the rain showed no signs of stopping. Sarah decided to venture into town for supplies before the roads became impassable. Donning her raincoat and boots, she stepped into the deluge. The streets were deserted, shops closed, the usual bustle of the town silenced by the storm. As she walked, she noticed muddy footprints leading down an alleyway, a path rarely used. Curiosity piqued. She followed them, the sound of the rain muffling her footsteps. The prints stopped abruptly at a brick wall, disappearing as if the person had vanished into thin air. A chill ran down her spine. She felt as though unseen eyes were watching her. Hastily, she turned back towards the main street, eager to return home. That night, the wind howled and the rain intensified. As Sarah settled into bed, a faint melody drifted through the sound of the storm, a haunting lullaby that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. She sat up, straining to hear over the rain. The melody was eerily familiar yet distorted, like a childhood song twisted into something sinister. She couldn't discern the words, but the tune sent shivers through her body. Compelled by a mix of fear and curiosity, she left her bed and followed the sound down the hallway. The melody grew louder as she approached the attic door, which stood ajar. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice barely above a whisper. There was no response, only the unending rain and that haunting song. Mustering her courage, Sarah ascended the creaking stairs to the attic. The room was filled with the remnants of her family's past, old trunks, faded photographs, forgotten memories cloaked in dust. In the corner stood an antique music box, one she had never seen before. Its lid was open, the ballerina inside spinning slowly to the melancholic tune. She approached cautiously. As she reached out to close the lid, the music stopped abruptly. The silence was deafening. Suddenly, the attic door slammed shut, plunging the room into darkness. Panic surged through her. She fumbled for the light switch, but it did nothing. The air grew colder, her breath visible in the faint light filtering through the small attic window. Then a whisper echoed in the darkness, her name, repeated softly but insistently. "Sarah, Sarah." "Who's there?" she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. The whispers grew louder, more insistent. She backed away, stumbling over an old trunk. As she hit the ground, a hidden compartment flew open and photographs scattered across the floor. Picking one up, she was startled to see a young girl who looked just like her, standing in front of the very cottage she lived in. But the photograph was dated over a century ago. Her mind raced. How was this possible? An ancestral resemblance, perhaps. Before she could ponder further, the whispers coalesced into a single, chilling sentence. "You cannot escape." The attic window shattered as a gust of wind tore through, extinguishing any remaining light. Sarah scrambled to the door, desperately trying to open it, but it wouldn't budge. After what felt like hours, the door suddenly gave way, and she tumbled into the hallway. The house was in disarray, furniture overturned, mirrors cracked, water seeping from the walls as if the rain had invaded her home. She needed answers. Grabbing her phone, she called her grandmother, the only family she had left. "Grandma, something's happening. I think the house," she began. "I warned you, Sarah," her grandmother's frail voice interrupted. That place is cursed, our family. We have a connection to it. You must leave now." "Why didn't you tell me?" Sarah cried. "I hoped it would spare you," her grandmother replied sorrowfully. "But the spirits won't rest. They seek redemption for what was done to them." Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah searched the house for any clues. In the library, she found an old diary belonging to her great-great-grandmother, Eliza. The entries told a harrowing tale of betrayal, greed, and a pact made with dark forces. Eliza had been accused of witchcraft by the townspeople, and in her desperation, had cursed the land and all her descendants. As Sarah read the final entry, a sense of dread enveloped her. The curse was real, and she was the next in line to suffer its wrath. A sudden knock reverberated through the house. She looked up, fear gripping her heart. Who could be at her door in such a storm? She approached the door cautiously. Peering through the peephole, she saw a figure cloaked in shadows, rain pouring off a wide-brimmed hat. "Who is it?" she called out. No response. The knocking continued, more urgent this time. Against her better judgment, she opened the door slightly. "Can I help you?" The figure lifted its head, revealing hollow eyes and a sinister smile. "It's time," it whispered. She slammed the door shut and locked it, her hands trembling. The figure began pounding on the door with unnatural force. The walls shook, and the whispers returned, now a cacophony of voices chanting her name. Realizing she couldn't stay, Sarah dashed to the back door, grabbing her car keys on the way out. The rain was torrential, the wind nearly knocking her off her feet. She got into her car, fumbling to start the engine. As she sped away from the cottage, the figure appeared in her rearview mirror, standing in the middle of the road, watching her leave. She breathed a sigh of relief as the cottage grew distant, but the relief was short-lived. The car radio crackled to life, the haunting lullaby playing once more. "What do you want from me?" she screamed into the void. The road ahead began to twist and distort. No matter which turn she took, she found herself back at the cottage. Panic consumed her. It was as if she were trapped in a maze with no escape. She stopped the car and stepped out, the rain soaking her to the bone. "Show yourself," she demanded, her voice barely audible over the storm. Lightning flashed and the figure stood before her once more. "There is no escape, Sarah. You must atone for the sins of the past." "What do you want me to do?" she pleaded. "Break the curse," the figure hissed. "Only then will we find peace." Back at the cottage, Sarah searched desperately for a way to end the curse. The diary mentioned a ritual, a way to make amends for Eliza's actions. She gathered the required items, candles, herbs, and a locket containing a picture of Eliza. As she prepared the ritual, the house grew restless. Shadows twisted along the walls, and the whispers turned to anguished cries. She began to recite the incantation, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. The cries intensified and the ground trembled. The candles flickered wildly. "Release these souls from their torment," she intoned. "Let the sins of the past be forgiven." A deafening silence fell upon the house. The shadowy figure materialized once more, but this time its face was visible, a mirror image of Sarah. "Who are you?" she gasped. "I am the embodiment of our family's darkness," it replied. "By facing me, you have shown courage. The curse weakens." "But it's not enough," the figure warned. "A sacrifice must be made." Understanding dawned on her. "Take me then. End this once and for all." As she uttered the words, a blinding light filled the room. The shadows shrank away, and the figure stepped forward, merging with her. Pain surged through her body, but she held on, determined to see it through. Moments later, the light faded and silence settled over the cottage. The rain had stopped and dawn was breaking. Sarah collapsed to the floor, her strength spent. She awoke to sunlight filtering through the windows. The air was fresh, the oppressive heaviness gone. She stood up slowly, realizing that the curse had been lifted. Stepping outside, she felt the warmth of the sun on her face. Birds sang, and the world seemed alive again. Her phone rang. It was her grandmother. "Sarah, are you all right?" Her voice was filled with concern. "Yes, Grandma," she smiled. "It's over." Though the curse was broken, the memories lingered. Sarah knew she'd never forget the ordeal, but she was grateful for a second chance. As she turned to go back inside, a gentle rain began to fall. Not the dark, ominous rain of before, but a soothing drizzle. She closed her eyes, listening to the rain sounds that now brought her peace instead of fear. That night, Sarah slept soundly for the first time in weeks. The rain continued softly outside, lulling her into a deep sleep. In the quiet of the night, a faint whisper drifted through the air, not a threat, but a gentle farewell. "Thank you," it sighed. The sky was a canvas of rolling gray clouds, heavy with the promise of rain. Maya sat by the window of her quaint countryside cottage, watching as the first raindrops splattered against the glass. She had always loved the rain. It brought a sense of calm and nostalgia. But tonight, there was something different in the air, an unspoken tension that made the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. As evening settled, the gentle patter intensified into a steady downpour. The rhythmic sound usually lulled her to sleep, but tonight it felt more like a distant drum, a warning of something approaching. Maya tried to shake off the unease, convincing herself it was just her imagination playing tricks. Little did she know, this storm would bring more than just rain. Thunder rumbled in the distance as Maya prepared a cup of herbal tea. She wrapped herself in a warm blanket and settled back by the window. Flashes of lightning illuminated the darkened landscape, revealing fleeting glimpses of the dense forest that surrounded her home. In one such flash, she thought she saw a figure standing at the edge of the woods. Startled, she leaned closer to the window, but darkness had reclaimed the view. Her heart quickened. Was someone out there braving the storm? She considered calling out, but reasoned it was probably a trick of the light. Yet, a nagging feeling kept her eyes fixed on the spot. Minutes passed, and just as she began to relax, a soft knock echoed through the silent house. Maya hesitated before approaching the front door. Who would be visiting at this hour in this weather? Peering through the peephole, she saw no one. She opened the door cautiously, the rain slanting in and soaking the doormat. "Hello," she called out into the downpour. There was no response, only the relentless sound of rain. She was about to close the door when a hushed voice whispered, "Help me." Her breath caught. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. "Where are you?" she asked, stepping onto the porch. Silence. Feeling unnerved, she retreated back inside, ensuring the door was securely locked. As she turned, she gasped. Wet footprints trailed across her wooden floor, leading from the door toward the living room. Maya's mind raced. Had someone entered her home while the door was open? Grabbing the nearest object, a heavy candlestick, she followed the footprints cautiously. They stopped abruptly in the middle of the living room. She scanned the area, finding nothing but the dimly lit furnishings. The fireplace crackled softly, casting dancing shadows along the walls. Seeking reassurance, she checked every room but found no one. Convincing herself again that it was her overactive imagination, she returned to the living room only to find a small, old-fashioned key on the coffee table, one she'd never seen before. The key felt cold in her hand. Curiosity overpowered fear as she contemplated what it might unlock. Her cottage was old, and there were rooms she rarely used. One door upstairs had always been locked since she moved in, a room she assumed was meant for storage. Ascending the creaky staircase, Maya made her way to the door at the end of the hall. Her hand trembled as she inserted the key. With a click, the door creaked open, revealing a dusty, untouched bedroom. Cobwebs adorned the corners, and sheets covered old furniture. On the dresser stood a tarnished silver locket. She opened it to find a faded photograph of a woman who looked strikingly similar to herself. Her reflection in the dresser's mirror caught her attention. For a split second, she saw not her own face, but that of the woman in the locket, eyes filled with sorrow. A sudden gust of wind slammed the bedroom door shut, plunging the room into darkness. Maya fumbled for the doorknob, but it wouldn't budge. Panic set in as the temperature dropped. The sound of rain intensified, pounding against the windows like a wild drumbeat. Whispers filled the air, indistinct at first but growing clearer. They spoke her name, over and over, mingling with the sound of the storm. Covering her ears, she backed away from the door. "Why are you here?" she shouted into the darkness. A woman's voice echoed softly, "You must remember." The room began to spin and Maya felt herself falling. When she opened her eyes, she was no longer in the dusty bedroom but standing in the same room, transformed. It was bright and warm, the scent of fresh flowers filling the air. Laughter echoed from downstairs. She glanced in the mirror. She was dressed in early 20th century attire. Confusion washed over her. Was this a dream? Footsteps approached, and a man entered the room, his eyes lighting up when he saw her. "Emily, my love, everyone is waiting," he said warmly. Maya tried to speak, but no words came out. She was living someone else's memory. Scenes unfolded rapidly, a whirlwind of joy and sorrow. She witnessed Emily's life, a loving engagement shadowed by secrets, a betrayal by someone she trusted deeply. The man from earlier was embroiled in a forbidden affair, leading to Emily's heartbreak. In a devastating moment, Emily discovered letters confirming his infidelity. Overcome with grief, she fled into a stormy night, the rain mirroring her tears. Maya felt every ounce of Emily's pain as if it were her own. She realized that Emily never returned, her disappearance shrouded in mystery. Maya gasped for air as she snapped back to reality, lying on the dusty floor of the locked room. The whispers returned, gentler now. "Find me," they urged. Piecing together the visions, she understood that Emily's spirit was trapped, seeking closure. The uncanny resemblance wasn't coincidental. Maya was a descendant, drawn to the cottage by forces beyond her understanding. Determined to uncover the truth, she resolved to find Emily's resting place and bring peace to her restless spirit. Searching the room, Maya discovered a loose floorboard under the bed. Beneath it lay a leather-bound diary, the pages yellowed with age. It was Emily's diary, chronicling her life up until her final days. Reading by flashlight, Maya delved into the heartfelt entries. Emily wrote of love, betrayal, and despair. The last entry detailed her plan to meet her unfaithful fiancé by the old willow tree near the river to confront him. Fueled by urgency, Maya braved the storm outside, heading toward the river. The rain had transformed the path into a muddy trail, but she pressed on. Lightning illuminated the gnarled branches of the old willow, standing like a sentinel by the raging river. "Emily," she called out, her voice swallowed by the wind. A faint glow appeared near the tree, a translucent figure of a woman in a flowing dress. She turned toward Maya, eyes filled with sorrow. "Emily, I've come to help you," Maya said softly. The spirit's voice whispered through the rain, "He betrayed me. I couldn't move on." Maya nodded. "I know, but holding on to this pain keeps you trapped. You deserve peace." The spirit extended her hand, a cold chill emanating from her. Maya hesitated before reaching out. As their hands touched, a surge of emotions flooded Maya's senses: heartache, anger, longing. "I forgive but cannot forget," Emily whispered. Suddenly, another apparition appeared, a man, face contorted with regret. It was Emily's fiancé. "Emily, I've been searching for you," he pleaded. "You left me," she responded, her voice echoing with centuries of pain. Maya stood between them. "Both your souls are bound here by unresolved sorrow. It's time to let go." The spirits gazed at each other, the weight of their past pressing upon them. Slowly, Emily nodded. "Perhaps it's time." A soft light enveloped the spirits as they began to fade. "Thank you," Emily whispered to Maya. Your courage set us free." As they disappeared, the storm began to subside. The rain softened to a gentle mist, and the clouds parted to reveal a star-studded sky. Relieved and exhausted, Maya made her way back to the cottage, the first hints of dawn painting the horizon. Entering the cottage, Maya felt a warmth that hadn't been there before. The air was fresh, the shadows gone. She knew the spirits had found peace, and with them so had she. Over the following days, she delved deeper into her family's history, honoring their memories and cherishing the connection she shared with Emily. Life resumed with a newfound tranquility. The rain returned occasionally, but it was no longer foreboding. Instead, it brought a soothing melody that lulled her into restful sleep. One evening, as Maya sat by the window watching a light drizzle, she heard a soft melody, the same tune Emily used to hum. But instead of fear, it brought a smile to her face. "Thank you, Emily," she whispered. In that moment, she knew that while the past had been laid to rest, the echoes of those before her would always be a part of her, guiding, protecting, and reminding her of the strength found in facing one's fears. Thank you for joining this journey through Echoes of the Storm. If this story kept you captivated and you enjoyed the twists and turns, please consider subscribing to the channel for more tales that stir the imagination and touch the soul. Sweet dreams, and may your nights be filled with fascinating stories.